We're into game one of this final best of 5 of the day. In the upper right, yeah, there's some Korean down below, but this is odds on one of the best Vanguard players playing the game right now. Certainly the best in Korea, in Asia, in the APAC region. His name is Percival.
He faces off against the blue Infernal in the bottom left, Elazer.
So again, Nate, as we take a look at this, Elazer has a, I don't want to say outdated, because it's not. He actually won a very convincing series yesterday, but an older way of playing these maps where instead of, walling off against the scouts and doing all that, he's playing very aggressively with his building placement here, putting it on the map, making sure he can take these camps as quickly as possible. And this actually can backfire. As we see, we talked about Broken Crown. We talked about this map where, yeah, you technically only have one access, but you can take the trees down, and that does make life a little bit more complicated. So you do have to be very careful about that. We saw actually Snockstar fall victim to that in his series versus Lucifron. I think it was that series yesterday where, dogs run through both sides. But if you can maintain map control with this, with these brutes, with all the fiends that you're able to make happen, it does speed your creeping up just a little bit. And in this game where it's all about getting as many creeps as possible before the scouts become overwhelming, that seems to be how Elazer wants to play.
Yeah, and we kind of see the focus even early from Percival with the dog harass, kind of just going for that the meat farm and trying to bait the speed camp into lining up those dashes against the fell hogs and just try to trim as much as he can out. But it's like a momentum based play, right? Because he swings straight out towards the vision, or at least towards the opponent's health, and he's going to try and make a play here. Fiend's trying to contest. Looks like one of the dogs are going to get popped, but he does not steal the creep itself. One of them goes up to veterancy. But he is going to deny the health camp from being taken, which would make trading over time on this spot a lot more difficult for Percival.
Yeah, arguably. Yeah, getting the 20 Illuminite you'd get, like, it's just about a worker, right, in terms of the swing. Yeah, that's nice. Taking down the scout and taking possession of this healing camp is a far more of an important thing. And here, again, we can see the difference in how Elazer wants to play and how a lot of these Infernal players are playing, where Elazer's like, yeah, okay, I'm going to expand, but because I take this second vault so far forward on the map, I can run into your main base immediately. And, 5 scouts against 3 brutes, yeah, you're going to have to go spend energy, promote them, but they're not owning the map right now. They have to fight into this. Bobs might have to get pulled to make this happen. I mean, certainly the Hexen will fall, but there we go. That's another scout that falls down. This Hexen's still not dead, and this is just making life complicated for Percival, making life difficult for Percival. And it means, again, he doesn't have the map. He's not allowed to just dominate the map and do everything like we've seen in these other games today.
Yeah, and it's a demonstration of an understanding here by Elazer, too. We talk about things like the overcharge and whatnot, but there's a reason why you don't see it here. I don't know exactly how much energy he has, but I'm going to assume a decent amount of it was spent on building stuff and doing other things like you would typically do in a game. So you don't always end up banking that, especially when you don't expect to have to be on the defensive. But this is exactly what Killer Pigeon did a great job bringing this up too. But just the aggression by Elazer has been awesome to see against Vanguard. I see this, and it makes me feel like the Vanguard has to think about doing something other than going dogs, and maybe they won't because it's still too good in general as far as the meta goes, but Elazer specifically finds a way to punish people for this, and I love it. He's turning me into a huge fan of him as an Infernal, because he is someone that is seeing something that pretty much everybody is laughing at and being kind of ridiculous, and he's going, there actually is a way that you can deal with these people, and maybe this isn't what Infernal players envision their games to go like, but it is something that kind of works to some degree. And he's got triple repair on a tier 3 veterancy scout, trying to hold that together, and so far it has managed to stay up, but it is tough microing Bobs in this situation too, because that is also the majority of his economy. It is his economy. Yeah,
I think it's also important to point out as we're looking at this fight, and again, I think Percival's very dead, just trying to find some value before he taps out, but if the meta is as strong as it is, which is absolutely the case right now, everyone knows a Vanguard player is opening scouts on like 99% of maps in 99% of games. If you can find an answer that maybe is not a good opening against maybe a bunch of other builds, but is very strongly counter meta here, is now the Biokinetics lab is going to get sold as well. Beryllium Claws are done, but again, like Percival's very dead here. If you can go and play something that is very strongly counter to the meta that, again, maybe gets handled by other things, you're going to win a lot of games. And again, that seems to be what Elazer's found. He's like, yeah, I'm just going to go and run brutes onto the other side of the map before you're properly ready. Oh, what are you going to do about it? And the answer thus far in the two series we've seen from Elazer in this tournament is die as Percival has to tap out in this first
Great
game,
build.
5 minutes in.
What are players practicing if they're not focusing on that style? And I do not know, because almost every Vanguard high level match I've seen revolves around that type of early game. So either Elazer switches it up or he does something else. But I think that he'll probably be the one to lead us on this journey. Guessing what he's going to do, I think, is a little bit tough. I like watching him though. He's got a nice interesting approach to this, and tower down early on the health camp by his own base, has the imp there, so Dog will scout that pretty quickly, and Hexen will head straight over to Percival's base as well.
Yeah, it's kind of cool also because this map doesn't have true randomness. There's no horizontal spawn, it's only vertical or cross. You can scout a lot by scouting very little. So he's going to say, oh, okay, well, I see. Well, he's going to see where the scout is. That's important. And now he's going to just have to go probably teleport right back home. There we go. But he does aggro the slime, which means that this Lancer, if this is a Lancer that Percival decides to make, cannot solo this camp anymore. They reset really weirdly. They don't give you that nice placement that you get when they first spawn. So that will slow down the creeping just a little bit. But anyways, by scouting across the map, you effectively know where your opponent is, regardless of where they actually spawn. So that's, again, fairly nice for Elazer. Double vault opening once again, one in the main base, one on the map. Not quite as aggressively on the map as we saw in that first game. So maybe this tells us something. I think we might still see him sally forth before the scout count gets too high. But yeah, maybe this is a slightly more defensive way he wants to play this game.
I think it makes some sense, because he's expecting that playing versus the map control on this map is always going to be really tough. I think going speed camp second is something that's always going to be good when you're dealing with an army composition that's just faster than you, just by default, to that degree on such a big open space. And you have to be mindful too if the dog count gets high enough, if there that backdoor opening happens as well, even with the cross spawn. So we're seeing about what we expect. I've got my eyes on Elazer as he clears the camp. I'm very interested what direction he goes, and he is expanding to Beo. So I was like, how much does he try to commit to aggression early on? Fiend checks the very bottom right, but I'm not 100% sure where he's going with it yet. But I'm just interested to see how he approaches this, as everything we're seeing out of Percival is kind of what we expect so far.
I remember he did expand last game. He ran across the map and did put that shrine behind us. He just wedges the brutes in here, trying to steal as much of the money of this speed camp as possible. But this is still only 3 brutes. Oh no! The dash there from the speed camp gives him another one for free, which is just beautiful here for Elazer. Even still, this Hexen will fall. It's on the map, not in Percival's base. And this is where this brute timing, if that we can call it that, is not nearly as effective, because it's not fast. There's, you can't go and just put the scouts into a corner. They can get surrounded. So pressure on the map, certainly. Forcing the scouts back. Yeah, that's scouts back. Yeah, that's great. But Percival has been allowed to play this game past the first couple minutes. And now, again, the question is, where does he take a natural? And what does he do here? The answer is, by the way, no natural for now. That's a second barracks on the way. You want scouts? Well, why not get more scouts?
Yeah, that's a good point. And there's very little downside to it. On this map, there's so many unique things too that just don't come into play on other maps, like having all of these heal camps, right? The ability to kind of stack it when you get that map control so much more than your opponent, in terms of being able to take prolonged fights. If you get, and I think we talked about this in one of the first matches of the day, where we had a game that kind of just boiled down to 2 of the healing camps versus all of the other ones, and then the healing camps actually end up coming in clutch, because that passive regen does stack, and it is very nice. If you've ever played a game on this map where you somehow get all 4, you feel very, very powerful in a fight, especially with the low damage units.
Yeah, we talk a lot about not fighting into healing camps, because that 4 HP regen per second is so impactful. Well, if you get all 4 camps on the map, which again, you probably should never get 4, because one is right outside your opponent's base.
Your opponent has clear, something has happened if you've gotten all of them, for sure. I agree.
But anyways, it's half the active creep camp buff at that point. It's 2 HP regen per second, which is, you're right, Nate, it is extremely significant. I like the micro here from Elazer, zoning out a lot of the scouts as well as he can, but the mass promote, a bunch of imps will fall down. And this is one of the problems with this map, is a couple scouts will fall. One of the difficulties with this map is, we talk about the run by spot that does exist, but also it's just fairly wide open, and it's hard to cover every angle to make sure the scouts don't run in and, at least get some economic damage done.
Yeah, and it's another great reminder too. A part of what this strategy leans on in Stormgate for Vanguard. All of the units that gain XP, they don't just gain health or attack. It's not all generic. Every unit has a specific buff they get as well. And for the scout, as they veterancy up, that's their vision. So you get all of these units now that can see a really far distance. So when you're trying to set up those walls, or you're trying to kind of make a play or cut them off, they get that heads up just by nature of how it works. Then, of course, they have that active ability to see even further. So the vision element of it makes it very difficult, because if there is a spot where they can get through or slip through, they're probably going to be able to see it.
Yeah, I will say, as we take a look at Elazer's build here, and again, he's earned the mid game a lot better than we saw a lot of other Infernal players play in this tournament. One thing I want to point out is I think his build is a little inefficient, and that what I'm talking about here is that he's consistently going Greater Shrine before the Ritual Chamber. So that is a lot, and you do want a Greater Shrine eventually. It does unlock Nightfall Infestation. It gives you some tier 2 spells, but really you want Greater Shrine for the tech. You want Greater Shrine to allow yourself to get Hexen upgrades on the way, to get Reaper Rush on the way. So to go and have your Ritual Chamber start effectively when Greater Shrine is done, it means that it's that much longer to go and to get into Reaper Rush, to get into Hexen Miasma. Theoretically, you can go, and if you optimize a little bit more, you can get Reaper Rush finishing as Greater Shrine finishes, and then you just go straight into Reaper Rush, and it speeds up your timing quite a bit. But I guess Elazer here, he thinks it's a little bit more efficient to do something else, and that will slow his upgrades down by quite a bit.
Yeah, gets the back cap on the bottom heal camp again with the single fiend, trying to take away just, again, that sustainability from the push. Now they're on an even footing with that regen, and actually could end up tipping a little bit in Elazer's favor if he secures his own again at some point, but he has to defend. There goes the Shroudstone Manifestation. It is going to get targeted down in the natural. Nightfall Infestation trying to catch will hit a few of the dogs and the exos on the edge. I might see, I think at least one or two of these should pop just from the infest right there. So a couple of fiends do come out, and you're talking about this. I mean, the army composition, not quite the thing to really jump and trap this, right? Since he went for the Greater Shrine a little bit faster, but this is just going to be Percival trying to kite and generate as much value as he can off of this push and this contain, and see if he can snowball it out. But again, Brutes, they're not really great at closing the gap against this kind of army, and that quick draw hustle just makes the exos. How do you punish them? How do you get on top of them?
It's important to point out that Plague Axes are done, so that does make life a little bit easier. We see a lot of these scouts very, very low, and they're not actually taking the healing camp on the left side because it has respawn, so you don't really have that advantage. Elazer's just trying to survive until he gets Reaper Rush. That's the big deal. He's going to drop some effigies. That is on Cree or on Shroud, so it is a 200 HP structure, not a 5 HP structure. A lot harder for Percival to go and tap down. And remember, Magmadon pops out of here. Kind of an interesting idea, but again, Magmadons without their upgrades are not very good. Reaper Rush is not done. Fiends are going to pop here. Elazer thinks that he can go and chase this down. And I gotta say, Nate, I'm not convinced about that one. It feels like before Reaper Rush is done, you gotta make sure you stay on Shroud. So he forces them back a little bit. But again, these Gaunts are slow. The Brutes are slow. This effigy forward is just gonna get taken down. And it's important to point out, right? Percival's one base. He's all in on this, but he's making a lot of value happen.
Yeah, the 30% move speed increase when you're trying to chase down, especially some of the ones on the front, once they get that infest popped, is not bad at all. Drops the other effigy, is trying to make one more push back, and so many of these exos are low. And as the other side of the mechanic that we see used for the tier 2 on the Vanguard, that promote, because it doesn't, of course, doesn't just make the unit stronger, but it gives you that total health, which essentially acts as a heal in these situations as he continues to kite out. But I like your point. Now that he can kind of chase him down and gun him down a little bit, it's the economy. During all of this, Elazer actually did take his third base, so he's building on that third Luminite in the low ground. So he's feeling like he's got a little bit of room to play here, going off the Shroud once again. Actually pinned between the creep camp and these Gaunts is a very nice pickup for Elazer. He's going to force the rest of these exos to come in and try and contest that. But I'm just thinking about what you were saying earlier, Beo, and that's there's no other base here for Percival. He's looking for a little bit more than what he's gotten so far by the looks of things.
And importantly as well, this all-in has lasted long enough that all the creep camps, or majority of the creep camps, they've all reset, which means there's no speed camp for these guys. There's no health camp for these guys. There's no passive region for these guys.
All the
damage is sticking. And now, yeah, Elazer's taking a lot of damage, but he has lasted long enough. Percival, not able to get enough done.
Huge nightmare for all of the other reasons that we discussed. I can't wait to see what he does here.
I think it's fascinating as well as we take a look at this. Yesterday, there were a couple 2-0s, but they were a lot of 2-1s, a lot of very close series. And now we're looking at today, which technically I looked at these matches. I'm like, dude, these are so sick. Like Denver Parting's going to be awesome. And Elazer Percival looks fantastic. I've seen these players play in a bunch of different smaller events, and they tend to be pretty good. And it's been like 3-0, 3-0, 3-1, 3-0, something like that. Like these matchups have been surprisingly one-sided for how high quality the players are. So I guess I'm a little bit hoping that we do see Percival at least take a map in the series and pull something back. Although, Nate, if it's on the front, it's on the back of a bunch of scouts diving in and killing everything in the first 5 minutes.
If that's the only way it gets to game 4, I'm not going to be like, oh, so glad we avoided another 3-0. I mean, hey, if he wins without the dogs, I'm going to be a little maybe my bias is shining through here a little bit. But you play enough VVV and you get a little bit tired of seeing this strat so much. That's all I'm gonna say. But for Elazer's sake, anyway, his approach to the game has just been really refreshing to see. My expectation out of Percival is that we'll probably see again what we've been seeing. The dogs, and maybe stay on the 1 base up to the 3 racks exo for the follow-up and just do this huge assault. So for Elazer, maybe the difference in this game is that he's going to have to consider again how to make the engagement happen in one place, since this map gives you 2 big avenues of attack.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. Again, it looks like Percival's just going to go for the scout thing. That is the meta. That is very strong. But you have the potential as a Vanguard player to do this really cool thing where you overcharge about half your bobs, you go take the health camp, and you go command post first. And you actually, it can work out now. Maybe against an aggressive Infernal like Elazer's been playing with these brute rushes. Maybe that's not possible. I don't know. But again, I am a little surprised considering that Percival's tried roughly the same idea 2 games in a row, and it just has been smacked 2 games in a row, that we're not seeing some adaptation from the Korean Vanguard.
Yeah, and that's what I think is part of this. Whether the word issue is appropriate or not is one thing, but this scenario comes from Vanguard also convincing themselves that this is the best possible way to do it, right? And that this is the answer, and that this is the most efficient way to try and win, regardless of whether your opponent has some crazy strat that they're preparing for it or not. But I like challenging that idea of this has to be the best thing because everyone does it. So when Elazer makes it look silly, that's when I feel like we're close to breaking free from it in a way.
Yeah, I am really happy though to see Percival go, and he's not going for the 1 base all in 3 games in a row. He actually is taking his natural, and we are seeing some development. He's not rushing into Verillium Claws, which I think is great, by the way. Again, showing some builder to diversity is fantastic. He did lose the Vision Camp, and I think he lost both creeps on the Vision Camp. Hard to tell. But again, he is doing something a little bit different. And if this is Elazer saying, I'm playing the counter build to the scout spam, that is what I want to do. That is the meta. That is how every Vanguard player is playing. If Percival does something a little bit different, maybe this is the first step to that. Maybe you're starting to see Percival play counter to the counter. And, maybe this works out.
I like what we've already seen. Has he made dogs? Sure. But is this the exact same thing that we've seen before? No. He's got an expansion before he even has the biokinetics lab. Love to see it. Maybe his plan is to just trying to go into exos faster because he's anticipating that the response will be, oh, he's gonna probably go fast Gaunts again because that just crushed all the dogs with the upgrade on tier 2, and he's gonna try and kind of game plan around that. But I think for Elazer's sake, he's going to be keeping in mind, it's like, oh, you're defending, oh, you're expanding. Okay, I actually can go out on the map and do stuff, and we're getting to see what that looks like for the first time here. As these fiends are going to get pushed back a little bit, but he's got a lot of brutes crossing, and well, the awareness is there. The vision tower sees them. So how does Percival respond? Now we find out.
Yeah, so exos are on the way. This is a full wall, so Elazer is really going to struggle to poke through that side. A bunch of exos firing from the other side of this will do a lot of damage. And you remember also, bobs can repair. You're close enough to overcharge, so even as the scouts try to slow things down and make a little bit of damage there, this should be fine. And interestingly enough, I thought this was going to be just quick draw. Hustle totally skipped Verillium Claws. No, he actually has Verillium Claws on the way. He says, okay, there are some gods on the map. I don't know that I agree with that, but that's where he's going.
Yeah. On one hand, if he doesn't think that it's the Gaunts or whatever, then maybe he feels like, okay, I get the economy first in some way which in this camp meta is not really a thing, but so I'm going to expand first, and then I'm going to go into the dogs, or I'd maybe just give himself them as an option, as a fallback later. I don't really know, but I was kind of with you, expecting him to go for quicker exos and try and play that shoot and scoot before the upgrades are done and get control that way. But for Elazer, we're seeing what happens when you don't put this kind of pressure on the Infernal. He's cruising to all those big camps. He's got a big army. He's got a lot of clear now, and for the Fiends north side, they can see that the exos are still outside that natural. He's got a little bit of space to work with, so he's not super concerned about having to defend just yet. But they are starting to cross, or at least a couple of them are.
Yeah, and actually, I like catching this. So we're going to see an effigy drop, of course, because you just want to make sure things last a little longer. And the brutes, the scouts won't kill the brutes. Let's be real, but they kill every single gaunt, and that is a lot of therium. That actually maybe they do get the brutes as well, even with the effigy there. Scout does need to dive on top of that, but it's getting body blocked very well. This is a nice little bit of an assassination. It's not a creep jack. You know, they didn't steal the camp. Well, they're going to get the passive, but they didn't get the active. But they knocked down a ton of Elazer's army. All those gaunts, they're expensive. In this early game, you know, you only have one therium patch to properly mine from. And now this gives, first of all, with this delayed scout idea, with, you know, eventually quick draw hustle on the map, it's 80%
That's
done.
filthy.
It's a lot of map control all of a sudden that Percival has.
Yeah, it's absolutely filthy. We're both wondering, we're like, okay, is dogs really his mid-game strat? And I guess the answer is, well, he's going into the exos, but he wanted to at least upgrade the ones that he retained from the early game, squeeze a few more out. And I guess when he saw the Luminite camp get picked up, he's like, okay, well, the upgrade for the gaunts can't be ready yet. So you called it beautifully, but he targeted all of the gaunts before he fought any of the brutes with them. And well, just the brutes on their own. I mean, you can attack them and then run away before they even finish their attack animation. So they're not necessarily the best ones at herding the fast units out on the map.
Nate, I'm just really excited right now because finally it's taken us 4 series. We did have one macro game, Denver versus Starting early on, but this is finally a true macro game. Third base going down for Percival. He doesn't feel like he needs to go one base all in to end the series, or, you know, go and get ended, right? We get to go to 3 games. We get to go to 4. We get to go to not 3 games. We're already there, but we get to go to 4 bases, 3 bases. We start to develop tier 2 tech. Maybe go to high command if we're so lucky. And now we get to see how these players approach the mid game, approach the late game when supplies climb. And dare I say it here? Maybe I'm reaching a little bit. Climb above 100 supply.
It's impossible. It's impossible. I'd love to see it. I think. Oh well, little jockeying in the northwest. It's a big force for Elazer, but we talk about the speed, we talk about the exos kiting. He does have the quick draw hustle, so he'll try to do a little poke and just contest this camp. Dog run by into the main base, though. Shroudstone Manifestation is gonna drop, and actually only 2 of those scouts are gonna make it away, so really fast reaction time by Elazer there to actually take away quite a bit. So it's a majority. Almost reflexively reaching for that U key to pull up the units tab, you know, like like the old days. I'm like, how many dogs does he have left after that? I think it's just 2 or 3. It's maybe making a few more. We'll find out.
The funny thing is, you know, even if you have like 2 dogs, once they have Beryllium Claws, once that 3rd base gets taken, if Elazer doesn't really batten down the hatches, okay, there we go. We're good. So for now, we're going to see Elazer on the north side again. He's creeping up. We're seeing the scouts try to maintain control of some of these camps on the bottom right side. But I'm starting to get a little worried for Elazer's economy. He does, again, he's creeping north side, doing a reasonable job there. But his 3rd shrine is only just now getting started. Percival's had this for a couple minutes. His economy is very nice. He's moving to Vulcans behind this. And this is what I wanted to see out of Percival.
Yeah, there
Percival
you go.
is one of these Vanguard players that really goes into mech. He finds value out of that in a way where we just see a lot of Vanguard players saying, yeah, haha, you know, I can go exo push. That's fun. He has a lot more complexity in his army. And Nate, you know, as a resident Vulcan enjoyer, tell me about it.
Well, I mean, the Vulcan is one of the most interesting units in Stormgate, in my opinion, because if you're familiar with like a Hellion kind of unit, it attacks in a line. It hits everything that you see that attack animation ripping through. So when units like run up in melee on your army and the Vulcan shooting to the side, it's basically hitting nothing. It's a unit that really gets value from attacking and holding position, more or less, into the middle of the enemy units. And then you can hit 7 or 8 at a time. But the damage also ramps up over time. So it goes from like I think it starts at 3, but after it shoots for a couple of seconds, it'll go all the way up to, you know, like 4, 5, 6 over time. So, and then with veterancy, that increases too. So it's a really heavy scaling unit, but on its own, not really microed or kind of just left on a regular A move. It sucks. So it's all about position. It's if you like geometry, if you like angles, you'll really like the Vulcan. You can get tons of value that way. It's got some upgrades as well, but they take a little while to get online, so usually not much of a priority. Now this sandwich is brutal though, because if the Vulcans are able to shoot on those gaunts, they will absolutely destroy them, and they can just tank an unholy amount. This is where the Vulcan really shines. It basically takes fiends and gaunts out of the game as long as they're not able to get a big snowball on your exos, but they do bonus to light. So the imps, they obliterate them. They obliterate the gaunts. Typically, Magmadons and Hellborns can be strong against them since their mobility is their biggest weakness. And if the Magmadon tramples, they can't do anything. They kind of just bug out. So they have to more or less be planted on the ground to shoot. There's your Vulcan breakdown.
There we go.
Glad I got to do it today. I was hoping we'd see one.
I also really think it's interesting. We see a lot of players like Kiwian, for example. He'll go and just say, I'm just going to get up to helicarriers, right? That splash damage is massive once the bombers go. But no, Percival, actually, he's got Atlas drops on the way behind this. Now, that is potentially a decent surround going to go down. Miasma's going to force everything back here. The range is so long, and there are so many of these Hexen. But maybe if the Atlas shots are going to be good enough, maybe Percival's going to be able to run away. For now, nanoswarms go down, and this positioning, forcing everything through the choke. If the shots land where they need to, they can be punishing here. But this army of Elazer on just this absolute trap is trying to force everything back. But look, Percival's doing a great job. He's not sitting in the miasmas. He's not giving Elazer this fight that he really desperately wants.
Yeah, trying with the Nanoswarm to give a little bit of that extra regen onto the Vulcans and keep them bulkier, since they're going to be the slowest units on the retreat. And that's where I guess the miasma becomes pretty tough for him to deal with, since it's not something that you want to sit in, and the Vulcan is a unit that kind of needs to sit. But as far as spread out, drawn out, full screen battles go, we're at least getting there. That miasma is absolutely all over the place, but the two Atlas, on the top side really help chipping away at this, and you mostly just want to be microing those more vulnerable exos back, but does get hit with another big round of that. So Elazer, we were talking about how the economy wasn't quite as much. Percival still has a very nice amount of supply, and it is worth mentioning with those evacs, if he ever has to kind of pull back or defend, or get forced to be in the defensive, he can, we get into harass with Atlas drops very quickly, so you don't want to give up here if you're a Elazer either.
Yeah, scary as well. Look at all the miasma going on the bobs. That means very quickly, suddenly you're going to have to fight a ton of fiends. So, again, this fight from Percival has been very good, but because Elazer has that third base, and because he was able to get so many of the creeps, he has been able to reinforce very, very well. The bobs are starting to go down, but they're still there. Now we're going to start to see some fiends pop, and this miasma on top of this turret is just making it so hard to hold on. These Atlases, Nate, they have been doing so much work, and I'm looking at this fight, and I'm like, man, Percival is like 10% of the way away from just sweeping Elazer from the map with this continuous Hellspawn Resurgence production coming out of Elazer is making it, he almost is breaking through, but I don't know that there's going to be I think eventually there's not going to be enough to buffer for these Hexen. They're going to run out of energy. You'd think that eventually this is going to be a hold for Percival, but I mean, as he's gone to arrive, it's just doing so much.
It's so tough because a lot of the micro is on the two Atlas, but it's not like he has the tier 3 upgrade for them. So it's just those slow shots. He's getting a few hits, but the battle is so spread out. It's not like this is a big juicy block of gaunts. He's been spread in a huge arc. Really, I'm impressed that this base is still up. This fight has just been it's been a 2 or 3 minute fight straight so far. And he finally gets a second to breathe, but that's kind of what I was saying. If he does get any time for passivity in this game, then the Atlas drop as an offensive tool becomes, very, very powerful.
It does. We see it right there. Hornets move in. It looks like he has this to make sure his evacs don't go down, right? In case a bunch of Shadow Flyers run in. Yeah. They don't do a lot of damage to ground. There was a time they did. They don't really right now. But yeah, positioning, if you can force a Elazer off your base, that is a lot better. And Elazer, he's kind of understood that this big timing that he was trying to hit, where he did almost break Percival, it was very, very close. He's understood that that's not going to work anymore. He's got a fourth base on the way. These miasmas, again, zoning as well as they can. But you're right to point this out, man. These Atlases are doing so much. You're targeting down all the miasmas as well as they can. And with, yes, Miasma's very strong, but when you have these med techs that are healing everything up, it's not getting as much damage done. 2 Atlas, 1 shot of Hexen. And now Percival, he's got a 50 supply lead. I think finally, given a 5-minute fight, again, this was super cool to watch.
That's one of the most fun fights I think I've ever seen in a Stormgate game, and we look at the results of it. So the evac veterancy bonus is that it gets extra move speed, and he already has the move upgrade. So that evac is very fast for repositioning the Atlas. It's supposed to have a speed penalty carrying them sieged, but it just literally means that he's got that much stacked on it. And both Atlas are at tier 2. One of them is at tier 3. They get extra range from that, so they can hit from even further away on top of the bonus damage. 2 big things to keep in mind. That veterancy evac with the 2 Atlases in it, that is an extremely MVP level value unit.
Yeah, we talk about hero units, and a bunch of the people from Warcraft 3 are talking about how, oh, we want hero units. This evac with 2 Atlases, we can consider this
is your
a hero
unit. Yeah, that's your special covert op rain or dropship giving you your units to start the mission, more or less what we're looking at. Very powerful setup.
I'm a little surprised we don't have the Atlas upgrade ready to go. You know, that just additional burning is really nice, but I guess Percival hasn't been able to afford it up until this point. And now I think he's just got Elazer dead. He held on that extremely powerful timing, but it's a 100 supply lead at this point. I don't know that Elazer, does he even have Elder Shrine? No, he doesn't. He's only on Greater Shrine. I don't see a Twilight Spire anywhere. The tech is just not there anymore for Elazer at this point. He can't build enough to make sure that he can support these miasmas properly and add the damage on top that is required to actually force this army back.
It's the strength of how Percival's composition works, I think, because he is playing bio and it's not mech style. He just had some mech with it. Very well played game. GG. Let's get it. Let's get into it. In the top right, we've got the red Vanguard player for getting himself on the board, staying alive. He's Percival.
And the bottom left, he stomped the first 2 games. A really good solution, whatever it was, to this mass scout spam. But game 3, a macro late game, Infernal, Percival was able to get there. We had really one of the coolest games that I've seen in Stormgate thus far. Can he do it again, or are we going to go to game number 5? It's Elazer.
Something really big about this map that stands out to me, Beo, is unlike many of the other maps, it feels like that first camp is just a little far out sometimes in terms of how accessible it is for sending that one Lancer out or going down with a few units. And I was wondering how Elazer would address that, since we've seen him either use the turret to take the camp and put the meat farm next to it early on. So already going to have to make some slightly different choices here, and goes for the reset on the slimes as well. You mentioned this earlier, but causes them to reposition when they go back, and then you can't hit all 4 at once with well, you know, almost all 5 at once with the 1 Lancer.
Yeah, you know, granted, we're not really seeing Percival go for that Scout and Lancer opening. We saw Luciferon do that in a couple games yesterday. I think maybe today too. It really does seem to be preference. If you have a Lancer, you go and I think you take the camps a little bit more efficiently, a little faster, but you don't quite have as much map presence, right? Scout is cheaper than a Lancer is, so, you know, put all that together, and it really is going to be player preference. But for now, Elazer, again, we're seeing the double vault opening. We've seen it in every game this series, and I'm just really hoping, you know, we talk about map design, and the natural of this map is extremely wide open. We can see this right here. There are multiple angles into it. It can be very scary to defend scouts, but also can be very scary with the rush distance for Percival to go defend against what Elazer's doing. So, you know, again, I'm cheering that we get past this stage of the game, but Elazer, well, he's gonna force Percival to earn it. We already have these brutes on the map. We have these scouts on the map. We haven't seen the Hexen go down just yet, so that's a little bit more. That's a little bit more power. And Elazer's trying to steal the health camp, but Percival, on top of things, already has a scout over, tries to dive on top of this Hexen, and gets the full surround. So the Hexen's dead, should die. There we go. It's eventually going to fall down. Tankier than you expect. 1 scout dies for it, but I think we consider that one worthwhile. Now look at this, though, with Elazer. He's got an imp with his army. There's a lot more pressure here.
Yeah, so we're seeing him break back into the aggressive side of things after, you know, we did have that game 1 start with a pretty gnarly attack from him, and he wants to try and put it all on the line again here. He is up 2-1. This is something that he can technically afford to fail with this, but at the same time, I'm sure for his sake, he would absolutely love to be able to avoid fighting against that army from the last game again. So I can totally understand bring the pressure, bring the heat. It is still mostly just the dogs, and that tower is not going to necessarily be in range. Oh, if you put the dog in the tower, all it does is detect stuff and give you vision. So you gotta be a little careful there. Okay, gets the buzzsaw turret set up, and now trying to make the play on the Shroud Stone again, but that is still a lot of brutes covering for it, Beo.
That it is, but we are on 2-Rax play here. We have Exos on the way, which, you know, 1 Exo doesn't do enough to hold this, but you get up to, like, you know, a couple here, you're able to go and maybe get damage done, and actually the Lancer's going to pop out a little bit because, you know, Sentry Post isn't close enough, but now it's a flat cannon. It's a little bit more all-around splash, realistically, as we see the Exo go in, and now, well, we're going to have all the Fiends dive on top, but that's when Overcharge arrives, and this is a level 2 push from Elazer as well. He's got this Shroud Stone getting right on top of the Sentry Post. First of all, wasn't expecting this whatsoever. Lancer's going to have to get on top of this, but the Shroud Stone
targeted both
so
Exos
much
as
damage.
well.
Oh, well played.
Targets both Exos with that Shroud Stone manifestation after he gets the turret, and beautiful play with the Fiend Transform behind the line. I was wondering what he was trying to do there as the Overcharge got popped. I didn't realize he was just trying to deny him the opportunity to repair, and gets the next Exo right as it comes out, just trying to slip behind the Bobs, and he will get there with a health, but no, just barely clapped by a Fiend. And I think, have we seen Elazer reach the purchase he was looking for here, Beo? Is this enough?
Yeah, that's the question I'm asking myself right now. So we're going to lose a barracks, I think. Only 1 unit in production at a time. And Elazer, again, he's double vault behind this. He's able to produce a lot more. Barracks actually gets sold to give a little bit more money. But this Sentry Post, I don't think it gets up here. Exos just, they build too slowly. We don't have a solar habitat that, you know, have to be on tier 2 anyways. We don't have anything to speed this up. So it's literally just Bobs that don't have overcharge anymore. They're on cooldown right now. Against this heavy Shroud pressure. By the way, this effigy, because of the Shroud Stone, is on Shroud, so it's not going down. It's 200 HP. And I think ever so slowly, this just continues to collapse for Percival. He was not ready for the Shroud Stone manifest. He's looking this like I was. This is a tier 1 timing. That's what we've seen Elazer go for. But
there's a Magmadon here rolling up into the main base. We've got the Big Daddy Madon. And at the very least, the Bobs will have to go on the run, but that's it, right? This is the only economy that he has. So if he's pulling his workers to run, he's not making anything. So it just doesn't get any easier in this situation.
Yeah, you know, 1 Exo technically does bonus damage to Magmadons, but you're healing 3% a second of white health on Shroud. Fiends are getting generated. Even if you're taking damage, technically, the healing is there. Effigy creep can... Okay, that's a little misplaced, Elazer. You probably want to go and put that a little further back, but it's fine. Percival's so
he's
dead
like,
in this
out.
game. It doesn't matter.
That's that Magmadon stomps. He just walks right through that Exo. He's like, this, I don't know how to tell you this, but the Central Command does not spawn Shroud. If you have Shroud around your Central Command, you may be in a situation you don't want to be in. So that Exo hits tier 2. He's going to try and kite around the Luminite brick, but that's it. He gives up.